And I guess I should be technical. If I were to switch back to my script, it's not the toy is being reloaded. The script is not necessarily being reloaded. It's being executed a second time. And everything here stomps over what the last stored memory was for these functions. So the myAssets reset, when it was executed, it was stored in a memory, and then when I reloaded the toy, it was re-executed, and this function was overwritten to show the new content. So, I mean, I'm just going to keep doing this. It saves time for me to just show that when I'm making these changes. So I'm going to change this to soldier idle image and just reload my toy. I'm going to change this to soldier die image and just reload. Ha! Problem here. Let's see what the issue was. Invalid frame 0 for asset ID soldier die image. So it looks like I am getting problems by reloading these functions. It looks like it's executing twice, so I should shut down. And there's a perfect example of, shut down if you're making script changes. So my assets, soldier die image, something was wrong with that. I'm going to just have a look. Yep, image file. Very quick and easy. I could pour through the console, but it was just fast for me to look at it real quick and spot the problem immediately. So let's run that again. Yep, there he is. In all his dying glory. Alright, so all of my static ones look fine. It'll look silly, but might as well. Let's just change this to, I think I named that squares image. Yes. And it actually does not have a frame. I'm just going to comment that out for now. And there's my square. So all my images look good. Now the next step is we have these images, and I don't want to write a script that just goes through and changes the frame each time. We have an asset to handle that for us, and that's our animation asset. So the next step is I'm going to create animations for each of my soldier states. There's the death, the idle, and the run. So I'm going to create animations that will take in the image asset, define the animation frames, and then I can add that to a sprite's animation field. So I'm actually going to start by doing that. I'm going to go to animations using app code. I'm going to create a new TAML file again. And this one I'm going to call my soldier idle anim. And this is an animation asset, something's different. So now I'm creating an animation asset. And let's see what it's telling me is wrong. So it looks like it's just complaining that I don't have the right stuff in here. So that's fine. The asset name is going to be soldier idle anim. And this is a different field. I'm not actually pointing to an image asset file. If I were to go to the idle, the animation field that I'm looking for is just called image. And what I need to do is point to an asset ID, kind of like what I did with the sprite. And the formatting for this is really simple. It's just asset equals my assets soldier idle image. Then I can say my animation frames equals. This is where it gets. This is where having an editor might be kind of useful, but I happen to know there's 16 frames inside of my image, and that means I can start at index 0 and just count up to 15, and the 15 will represent the 16th image. There we go. And the timing of this is just basically 1 second to get through. And just one other thing I can do is animation cycle. By default this is true, but I'm going to specify it anyway. And there are other things I can do in here, but here's another handy thing I can show with the schema and XML editing. let's say I try to go and do my animation frames, and I'm typing slow, I'm talking slow. You notice that it's not giving me a pop-up, and I get a nice little notification. It's telling me to remove it, and it's telling me why, because animation frames has already been defined. That's good. And here's my valid animation asset. So if I go back to my main.cs, I can actually change this from image, this is my soldier image.image, to animation, get rid of the frame, and switch the asset ID to point to my newly created soldier idle anim. And I'll double check the name here. Yep, that looks good. And this is my soldier idle image. You notice it was the same asset name when added to this format. We'll use the asset ID. And if I run, kind of hard to tell, but if you're watching carefully, he's got a slight little jitter to him. He's just kind of bouncing slightly. And it's become more, I guess, visible when I switch to more animated states, like his run or death. Okay, let's create those other two animations. And again, when you're doing a copy and paste, you are prone to error. I'm going to do that right now just to save time and reduce the amount of keyboard noise. So I'm going to create some more animations. This will be my soldier death anim is animation asset, and I can just type in something wrong because I'm just gonna copy and paste, even though it's telling me it's like, hey, that's in the wrong spot. And the soldier death one is essentially it's the same amount of information. I just need to point to the right image, give it a unique name. Let's see, let me check that out. My image was soldier die. And it does have 16. It is not cyclic. Basically, when this guy dies, unless he is, unless it's part of the gameplay, he's going to die. His animation is going to play once. So let me check. Soldier death anim. That looks good. I'm going to create one more. And this is going to be my soldier run anim. And I'm going to do one more copy paste over. Aha, I actually copied from the wrong area. See, this is what I mean. Copy and paste, you're not paying attention, something bad's going to happen. So I've got my three assets now. And here they are right inside of my animations. Let me get back to my script. So why don't I change this to my soldier run anim and run toward 2D and see how that looks. There we go. Now we have a blip here. And the reason is because the run one actually doesn't have 16 frames. It actually only has 15. And when it gets to that last frame, it's just going to pop. And there's a cell there, but it's empty. Let me have a look at that real quick. And you see down here, this is a valid cell, but there's nothing there. So that's not useful to me at all. So let me go back and change my soldier run anim to only have actually it looks like I messed up my other one, so now I have to go back. Yeah, there's 16 cells, but I start counting at 0, so all the other ones were messed up as well. And this is where copy paste will completely bite you. There, I've made those valid, and I fixed my soldier run, and let's run. There we go, nice and smooth. I suppose if we wanted to make them a little hyper, I could do that. By reducing the time it takes to complete an animation, and we can just get flat out ludicrous, really make them hyper, but that doesn't look right. So I'm going to change this back to 1. This is the animation time I've been modifying. And close out my assets. Okay, so I have a background image. I have an animated soldier that's running. Let me just go ahead and check out his death and make sure that it's not cyclic. Aha, error. What's going wrong now? Failed to acquire the asset, my assets, soldier, death, anim. More than likely I just used the wrong name, so let me open that up. Oh, that looks right. Let me just copy and paste in here. So there's more to it than that. Let me open up my console log as a standalone. Kind of look through here. I'm going to do a search for soldier die. It's soldier die asset.taml. That was not necessarily the name I was going for, but let's go check that out too. Soldier die image, soldier die.png. That all looks right. Let me run again, and actually when I look at it through the console, I can get some other errors with coloring actually. No, I bet it's the file name. Let's see, soldier. Yes. So I messed up my template. It's not foolproof. When I typed in the name, I just typed in soldier death anim, and it added the .taml extension onto that. Let's have a look again at our module, which will explain this problem. I'm declaring that all my assets are inside of the folder or subfolders of assets, and that the assets I want to use have the extension asset.taml. So in other words, it should be soldier death anim .asset.taml. And I'll fix this. I'm actually going to go to the OS level. Now, making these kind of mistakes for a video tutorial may not really seem professional, and they're definitely not intended. These are accidental mistakes, but sometimes you can learn just as well from your errors as doing it right the first time. So it's good for me to go through and use the console and find out the problems and debug as I go. Thankfully, it's nothing crash-worthy, because I can just get that image, that orange could not be found. Let me try running again. Fingers crossed. Yes! He is dying, but he's cyclic. And why is he cyclic? The reason he's cyclic is because I did not actually explicitly say you are not a cyclic animation. I've got my image frames and my animation time. But there's something else in here. Animation cycle is false. Perfect. Dies once. If I hit restart toy, it'll just reload the simulation, or reload the toy, but it won't reload torque. So it's just playing the reset again. And you see, if I do it fast enough, he never gets a chance to finish, but there he is. Good old dying soldier. So we've proved that our image assets for a sprite are fine, and we proved that our image assets are fine for using inside of an animation asset, and then our animation assets are working just fine as well. And that covers a lot of the basic ones. You'll use those a lot. So let's move on to ones that we don't actually have a lot of tutorials for, and that's creating audio assets, using them, and creating particle assets and using those.